So we kick off Raw this week with a promo by Daniel Bryan, leading into the rubber match between him and Randy Orton, and he's talking about the little man syndrome and how some people thought he was too small to be a wrestler, and this and that, and some people thinking that he has an inferiority complex. Well, he likes to refer to those people as morons. Yeah, that was. It's actually a pretty good promo to start off. Then we get into the match itself, and basically it was just it had to be a pull apart, and you got a double disqualification to start the show. Hey, at least John Cena wasn't in the opening segment, so this is a bonus right here for me. I tell you what. And then after the match, you see Vicky Guerrero and Brad Maddox in the back, and Daniel is ranting and raving about double disqualification, and he wants to have another match with Randy Orton because he really wants to beat him fair and square or make him tap out or whatever. And Vicky gives it to him, and then you see Vince McMahon show up, and this would be a recurring theme with the McMahons and Vicky and Brad Maddox tonight. Because you would see a segment with God later, and you'd also see stuff. So, actually, it was a good start to the show. It furthered the feud more between Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton. Didn't have any heel turns yet, so all right. Oh, and so since last week, Sheamus lost in a handicap match against the Rhodes Scholars. Well, he decided he needs some help this week in the form of Christian. And one thing that they were talking about on commentary is the passing of Jackie Fargo, who is a Memphis legend. If you don't know who he is, look him up. I imagine a lot of you probably do, but it was kind of a nice touch by Jerry the King Lawler to talk about Jackie Fargo, considering he knew him really well. But as far as the match itself goes, it went about as well as you would have expected it to go. Sheamus ends up winning with a brogue kick after miscommunication between the Rhodes Scholars, and that's about it. Rhodes Scholars deserve a hell of a lot better than what they're getting right now. Well, if you wanted to see a lot of Vicky Guerrero tonight, you really got your wish. As they show her in backstage area, Punk seems to be texting somebody. Maybe he's texting Amy, I don't know, and he's basically ignoring her, and she says she's gonna put him in a match, and it's just like, excuse me. Okay, your random Divas match, Caitlyn against Oksana, kind of the same thing you had on Friday Night SmackDown, except for the fact that AJ Lee comes out on the ramp there, and she's dressed up like Caitlyn. And she just has this. Oh God, this is just stupid all around. Caitlyn wins after a spear after Caitlyn was distracted. Probably would have made a lot more sense if Oksana would have actually won this match. It probably would have. Having her distracted and all, but oh God, this angle is so stupid. AJ Lee as your top heel diva is stupid. Having her as the Divas champion, wow. It kind of does make sense, actually, but it was just stupid all around. Alright, then you had another rematch from SmackDown, which was your 1 hour main event. Chris Jericho against ADR. Oh, wow. This actually was the best match on the card tonight. It's kind of the same finish, almost, sort of, kind of. Except for this time, Ricardo calls it the DQ after he nailed Jericho in the back with the bucket, and Ziggler comes down and attacks Del Rio, and Jericho ends up hitting the code breaker on Ricardo, and Ziggler hits the zigzag on Del Rio, and then you got a little bit of a stare down between Jericho and Ziggler after what Jericho did to him on SmackDown. Hit him with the code breaker, and as Jericho's walking away, Ziggler hits Jericho with the zigzag. So you can understand that it's kind of tit for tat, you know. But as I said earlier, you had Vicky Guerrero and Brad Maddox in the backstage area with God. And God wants them to. He wants Vicky and Brad to be overachieving, if you will, or like that, you know. We're gonna have another WWE bat pool. You got the crowds, the WWE universe. It's gonna pick the stipulation for the match between Danny Bryan and Randy Orton. You either have a lumberjack match, you have a false count anywhere, or you have a street fight. Ooh, yes. So evidently there's going to be a WWE 2K14 game. They're going to announce the cover, or who's going to be on the cover. And you had Jerry Lawler in the ring along with Vicky and Brad Maddox. As I've been saying, if you have a wish to have Vicky Guerrero and Brad Maddox in almost every segment, hell, you got it tonight, brother and sister, whoever. But, God, Lawler's talking about it. The cover, he's talking about this contest where you can design the back of the cover of the game, and Vicky takes it from there. And every time she opened her mouth, she was getting her booed even louder. She had to say "excuse me" about 4 or 5 times, and what was funny, that they both showed their own covers. Vicky being the brown noser that she is, she shows a cover with the McMahon family, Triple H or God and Steph and Vince, and then Brad Maddox shows him in the middle between CM Punk and John Cena. That actually was pretty funny. But then they show the real cover. And it's got the great one, the People's Champ, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Oh, yes. I'm sure that made Dreamboy899 very happy. Thank you very much, Dustin. Oh, so we get the return of Ryback against the Great Khali. Well, thanks to John Cena, Ryback has become pretty much irrelevant now. Nice job, Cena. You've done a hell of a job. Ryback ends up winning this match after Khali controlled most of it after the shell shocked, and that is about it. Ugh. Okay, next you have a John Cena promo, and surprisingly enough, it's not like the 1 hour main event or the 2 hour main event, or worse yet, it could have been the main event of the show, but it's right in the middle of the show. But this same old boring shit. Talking about the WWE Championship and how only 43 men have ever held the title. Well, there's been 8 years like Bruno did, or 1 day like Rey Mysterio, or 1 day like Kane after he got beat by Stone Cold Steve Austin the next night on Monday Night Raw back in 1998. But oh God, it's just the same old hokey shit from Cena. He basically says he's gonna kick Mark Henry's teeth down his throat after you disgrace the retirement speeches of like Edge and HBK and the Nature Boy. Ugh. All right. Then next, you had a 1 hour, a number 1 contenders match for the tag team titles between 3MB, Tons of Funk, and the Usos. Well, Tons of Funk came down there. Some guy that won an auction for Hurricane Sandy named Scott Campbell. I think that was his name. I knew it was Scott something, but anyway, this is a very short match. And the Usos won to become the number 1 contenders for tag team titles. The only problem I have with this is, weren't they already the number 1 contenders before? And why are Tons of Funk doing the job here? Should have been 3MB doing the job. I'm just really surprised that wasn't them. But then you had the Shield they act like they're coming down towards the ring, but they don't. I think they just wanted to show their presence on this show, and that was about it. Just a very short match. All right, then you got Paul Heyman coming down to the ring, and he's talking about why he's been ignoring emails and texts and phone calls from Punk all week, because he wants to call him out and deal with it in public, because they live their lives in public, basically. So Punk ends up coming out there, and he talking about how he was signed by WWE back in 2005, and they wanted to send him down to developmental, and he basically tells why he's been a Paul Heyman guy for this length of time, because Vince and them, they all told Heyman to fire him, but he wouldn't do it. Then they get to talking about what happened last week between Lesnar and Punk, and I tell you what, this was a very good segment, I thought. What else would you expect between CM Punk and Paul Heyman? And still, it seems like there's more questions than answers when it comes to this thing between Brock Lesnar and CM Punk and Paul Heyman. Heyman says he will never manage anybody against Punk and this and that, but they end up embracing in the ring after Heyman says that he didn't know Brock Lesnar was going to be there last week to attack him, and it kind of just leads into a match between him and Darren Young. That's the match that Vicky put him in, and Punk ended up winning with the Anaconda Vice, but in the meantime, he really made Darren Young look good, probably better than he really is. And then afterwards, Darren Young and Titus O'Neil attack him, and Heyman ends up sending Curtis Axel down to make the save, and then they talk afterwards in the backstage area, and Punk's only got one focus, and that is to win the WWE title and beat Brock Lesnar, and that's about it. But I mean, all of this, and another thing I did forget to mention, that Heyman went and talked to Vicky, and next week it's going to be a match between CM Punk and Curtis Axel against the Primetime Players. So that's going to be very interesting indeed. Okay, then you see Stephanie McMahon in the backstage area talking with Vicky Guerrero, and wondering if she was going to announce the participants in the Money in the Bank ladder match this year, but Vicky said she hadn't got to it, so she ends up going down out to the stage area, and she announces the names for the Money in the Bank match for the WWE Championship. Well, you got Punk, you got Daniel Bryan, you got Sheamus, you got Orton, you got Christian, you got Kane, and Rob Van Dam making his return in Philadelphia. So, the only question is this going to be the only Money in the Bank match on this card? Is there not going to be one for the World Heavyweight Championship? Unless they're going to announce that on SmackDown, maybe. But, gee, it seems like that none of the younger guys are going to even get a shot at this. It looks like it's all main eventers and upper mid-carders. It's like, what happened to the Money in the Bank briefcase, What about that elevating somebody? Huh? Oh, you see Ryback coming up to Vicky Guerrero and wondering why he's not in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Because all he's been doing is getting screwed, and how he says he should be WWE champion, and then Jericho comes up to him, and he's wondering same thing. So, what Vicky ends up doing is putting them in a singles match against them for Money in the Bank. So, this match would have happened probably like a couple, 3 months ago. This match probably would have meant something, but I mean, Ryback's been pretty much become irrelevant, and Jericho will probably end up putting him over anyway. I mean, Jericho is such a company guy as it is. So Ryback will probably end up winning this match, I'm guessing. Then you got Mark Henry coming out of the ring, and he's got another nice suit on this week, and he talks about how everybody was fooled by his retirement speech last week and this and that, and yeah, and granted this promo wasn't as good as last week's was, but I mean, because that would be pretty hard to top, but this promo is still good. Talking about how he's never been the WWE champion, and he's gonna be coming home with it. And Lord, I can only hope that he does. That would be great. Even if he's only a transitional champion, this would be great. It'd be a good cap off to his career. And so we come up to the main event, which is Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton again. Now it started off the show. It might as well end the show. and we get the results of the WWE app poll. And with 50% of the vote, Street Fight wins. And this is actually a pretty good street fight. You saw the use of a bunch of weapons. You saw Orton use a chair a couple times. You saw both Orton and Daniel Bryan both go through tables, and you saw a candlestick Singapore cane being used quite often. But as far as the match goes, I thought it was a pretty good street fight actually. Daniel Bryan gets the tap out victory on Randy Orton, so maybe hopefully he will not have an inferiority complex no more. Okay, as far as my final thoughts on this week's Raw, I thought that match between Jericho and ADR was very good. Then again, I think Jericho could have a good match with a broomstick, and then Ziggler attacking Jericho with the zigzag. It's kind of payback for what happened on SmackDown Friday night. And I thought the street fight between Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton was very good, but then again, Daniel Bryan's had great matches for the last few weeks on Raw and SmackDown, so that's no surprise there either. Well, what was kind of a surprise though was Punk having a really good a pretty good match with Darren Young. It's like made Darren Young look like he's actually a credible wrestler. I personally don't think Darren Young's that great, but Punk actually made him look pretty good. And then the stuff with Punk and Lesnar and Paul Heyman, and I guess now you can throw Curtis Axel in there. It's like this is gonna be really interesting to see where this actually ends up. Is this all gonna be a big ruse by Punk and Heyman against Lesnar? Is Punk really gonna be a babyface in all this? It's really gonna be interesting, I think, and I really want to know what you guys thought about this week's Raw as well. I actually thought for the most part it was pretty good. I mean the AJ Caitlyn stuff that was pretty much terrible, but otherwise I thought this was a pretty solid show for the most part. So, and I am Marvelous Mark, flying solo again. So, you know what? Goodbye.